Tonight on Bill Green's Maine, we'll visit Huckfest, where kayakers huck themselves off Grand Falls. We'll hike Katahdin with Lynn Merrill, who lost her sight 21 years ago. And we'll talk with Richard Shea, whose company Major League Eating brings us the world-famous Coney Island hot dog eating contest. Join us now for Bill Green's Maine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome again to Bill Green's Maine, coming to you tonight from Chimney Pond at the foot of Mount Katahdin. And we'll tell you why we're here in the final segment of tonight's program. But first, we're going to head over to the Forks for a little thing called Huckfest. It's an informal event that you have to see to believe. Huckfest is an informal kayaking event in which somewhat crazy people paddle over 40-foot Grand Falls.
It's a combination of awesome and terrifying. It's like nothing else.
There's no governing body, no prizes, no insurance. Word circulates through Maine's paddling community, and on a certain day, people just show up. When you're from Jackman, you're supposed to know better.
I don't know. It's scary. I've done it twice before, and both times it hurt really bad.
You've got to be a little bit foolish and a little bit courageous to do it.
You just gotta watch a lot of video to get pumped up for it. Like, we watch a lot of Nitro Circus, lots of Jackass, and there's no better way to get stoked than watch guys just crush each other and get hurt. And then you're like, I can do that too. So we come out here, and we may get hurt, but let's go for it.
Let's go for it.
Most of these paddlers are river guides at Maine's various rafting companies. In 2011, 9 of them decided that paddling over Grand Falls could be done.
One of our friends, it's his birthday this year, and it's been Chuck Matthew, yep. He came up with the idea of chucking ourselves over here, and then we ended up calling it Huckfest, and it's just grown like extravagantly.
Now 100 river vultures turn out at various viewing spots and watch the paddlers huck themselves over the falls. It's also known as boofing, an onomatopoeia for the sound a kayak makes when it lands flat, and that's something you don't want to have happen.
So ideally you want to hit with your kayak straight down, but one time I did, I landed flat, which is really bad because you can compress your back, and then the other time I did, I went forward and landed on my face. So hoping this time, third time's a charm.
If all goes well, it looks something like this.
The idea you want to get out of there quick is there's a big recirculating hole at the bottom. So if you get stuck in that, we've had some people take some swims where they kind of get sucked back in and take an extended submerge, but
as each paddler takes a turn, and sometimes 2 or 3, the vultures roar their approval. Volunteer safety people set up at the bottom, but pretty much you are on your own, and there's a chance of hitting a rock even when you hit your line.
And last year we did have some carnage. We've had a fractured spine, some dislocated shoulders, broken noses, fat lips, torn biceps in 4 years of doing this, so it's definitely not no consequence.
The roar of the crowd is reserved for when the kayak emerges from the water. Some of the paddlers have the presence of mind to dress it up for the audience. What goes on? Do you have time to think about it?
Oh yeah, you're thinking about it. It's just chaos, really. I mean, you're just trying to figure out which way is up and get your roll, get your head out of the water. That's a good feeling as long as you're paddling away and not getting sucked back in.
As the day goes on, paddlers congregate above the falls, and you can tell their adrenaline is pumping as they head for the big drop.
At the top of the lip, I usually just clear my mind and say my prayers and send it, man. Like, there's no other feeling in the world like it, man.
You're in the water after you hit. Is that bedlam?
That's like a car crash for sure. It's like a good 40-mile-an-hour impact. Boom! Lays you right back, and then you come up and you're like, all right, roll over, roll over.
Hannah Seidel is a new raft guide from Pennsylvania.
This looks terrifying, but I always like adventure, so.
When does adventure stop being adventure and start being terrifying?
I mean, it kind of has to be a little terrifying for it to be an adventure, but I feel like everyone else is doing all right, so.
Hannah's trip did not go so well. She submerged and was unable to roll her kayak. She came up enough to get a breath, but eventually had to pop the skirt and slide on out. The GoPro video from Hannah's helmet reinforces that a huck over Grand Falls is fraught with danger.
Wow! Oh my gosh, what happened? Yeah, I was very worried, but it was fun. The scariest part was at the bottom when I couldn't roll up, and I was kind of getting smashed against the rocks a little bit. Glad I had a helmet on, for sure. But yeah, hopefully I can do it again sometime.
Huckfest is a wild and dangerous challenge, even for Maine's best paddlers, and something that you just got to see to believe. Now, I asked one of the guys what would happen if I paddled a kayak off of Grand Falls, and he said you would die. So don't try that stuff at home, even if home is Grand Falls. Time now for our trivia question, and it is, behind me in those clouds is Mount Katahdin. We want to know, how tall is Mount Katahdin? We'll have that answer later on. But next, we're going to meet a Mainer who makes a living a most interesting and somewhat famous way. It's Major League Eats when Bill Green's Maine continues. A lot of Mainers have interesting jobs, but our next guest has one of the most interesting. We've all heard of that Coney Island hot dog deal. Well, believe it or not, it's put on by Mainers, and even the qualifying rounds are something to see. Major League eating events are hard to stomach. This one in Boston is a qualifier for the World Championship, Nathan's famous Coney Island hot dog eating contest. That is the Super Bowl of competitive eating, and is run by a couple of former Bangor boys, Richard and George Shea. We met with Richard before he went on stage in Boston.
Is there a train wreck element to competitive eating? I can't watch it, but I can't not watch it.
Yeah.
I think for some people, yeah. But you know, there's a little idolatry too. I mean, these people are celebrities.
It takes 10 minutes to produce a wiener in this contest. As a big crowd looks on, some incredulously, Richard strolls the stage providing sophisticated, humorous narrative.
Huh? Yeah, I don't make a lot, but I can crank sticks whenever I want it.
Forget the degree from Villanova. The taste of this event was learned growing up on Grove Street, or perhaps swimming for Phil Emery at Bangor High.
I do often fondly think of the swim team in Bangor. We were good, and it was an excellent program, and my brothers and I all credit Phil for a lot of our discipline.
After college, Richard moved to New York City and joined his brother in building a firm known as Shea Communications. Their disciplined approach enables them to put on classy-looking events with all the fixings.
We have a PR firm, my brother George and I, and we do more standard corporate PR, and we do real estate PR in crisis. But then we also do some promotions. Major League Eating itself is a separate business, but it's a marketing platform.
Major League Eating now controls most of the big competitive eating events and TV specials. Nathan's is broadcast live by ESPN, and Richard is one of the announcers. Other events, such as gyro eating in Houston, may be unappetizing, but are apparently satisfying to watch. They earn solid ratings. Rules are needed, and safety becomes paramount.
We don't manipulate the narrative. Everything that happens on the stage happens. Win or lose, that's just the results are legit. You know, if we're going to call it a sport, we better treat it like one.
Competitors must sign a contract which states they will only compete in MLE events. One former champion couldn't swallow the rules and has challenged the Sheas. The Sheas feel they need to control the events because one big emerging star could take a big bite out of their business.
My father's an old school Celtics fan. He can't even go to the games anymore because he thinks it's all about the t-shirts. We started with the t-shirts and all the pageantry. That's the root of our game. So you know, if you think of it beyond just the sport, it's a marketing platform. It's incredibly successful. You could argue, easily argue, that the 4th of July hot dog contest for Nathan's is the biggest, most effective publicity stunt in the world.
In Boston, 22-year-old Matthew Stoney ate 53 of those Coney Island babies.
It's hard, you know, I practice a lot, but excuse me,
How do you practice?
you know, I just at home I buy Nathan's hot dogs and eat and just get used to the flavor and the texture and the technique involved.
I asked competitor Maria Meatballs DeVikas if the hot dogs provided an aftertaste. I'm sorry to ask a personal question.
Yes.
But you just process that normally. You sit down and...
I don't know if it's normal, but it processes.
Richard and his family spend time in Freeport each summer, where perhaps he reflects on what a long, strange trip it has been.
Yes, I'm a middle-aged man who wears a straw hat on stage for a living.
But it all boils down to so much more for this smart, funny, and creative Mainer who has found a niche and built it into an American classic. I hope they make a lot of money on it. Still, it's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. When we come back, we're going to scoot on up to Brunswick. Stay with us for more of Bill Green's Maine. We spend a lot of time talking about motorcycles, but a lot of people like to scoot around on something known as Vespas. They're a little European Java, and there's a small but growing group of people who call themselves aficionados, if that's a European word. Scooters just seem to attract attention.
They're fun. You ride by, people smile.
That's what I was afraid of when I joined a group from Topsom. We broke out our mustache cam for a ride across the bridge to Brunswick and then around town.
They're awesome. They're amazing.
Wow.
I just think they're the most beautiful machine I've ever seen.
People either love or are amused by scooters. Since 1943, the iconic brand is Vespa of Italy. They are monocoques. That means the external skin is also the main support, balanced on 10-inch tires. All the controls are on the handlebars. Hank Swenson sells them.
I think what you're seeing here is sort of half of it, the young crowd, the young people. And they're getting together and they're riding to work. A lot of Portland. We sell a lot down in Portland because the parking is a problem. There's another half, which is the older crowd, that take the campers. You know, when you get to a campground, you got something to go off to the grocery store.
Economical and very green, Vespas get 100 miles a gallon. Most have 49cc engines, which means you don't need a motorcycle license to drive one. Their sound is iconic. And you can keep them humming with basic metric tools.
The floor was completely rusted away. I cut the floor off, re-welded a new floor pan on, did all the body work myself, rebuilt the engine from the ground up, and I painted it in my backyard.
With a top speed of 39 miles an hour, Vespas are an urban scoot-around vehicle that are peppy fun and have style that attracts a passionate following. That was a lot of fun, but I felt a lot more confident when I was in a group than when I was riding a Vespa by myself. All right, when we come back, we're going to head up to Mount Katahdin, and not just with anyone, it's with Lynn Merrill, a woman who lost her sight 21 years ago. We'll give you a unique view from the top when Bill Green's Maine continues. Time now to answer our trivia question. Earlier in the program, we asked you, how tall is Mount Katahdin? And the answer is 5,267 feet. And no one knows that better than Lynn Merrill. Lynn lost her sight 21 years ago, but that hasn't stopped her from doing very much. She does things like climb Mount Katahdin. The Wabanaki called it Katahdin. It means highest land, greatest mountain. For most Mainers, it's more of a symbol of the state than a lobster or a lighthouse.
Easy. Nice.
Lynn Merrill is a Mainer through and through, and she's always wanted to climb her native state's highest peak.
For me, it is a turning point. I have wanted to do this since I was a teenager, but life got in the way. And then when it seemed that I would be able to do it, then I lost my vision. So life once again got in the way.
That's right. Lynn Merrill is blind.
Find a way.
She's attempting to fulfill a lifelong dream with her dog Libby and an entourage that includes her son Joseph
Give a step down.
and Chris Eastwood of the Fidelco Guide Dog Foundation.
What I can see through my eyes is not a great deal. I have about 10 degrees of vision in my right eye only. I have no vision in my left eye. So I guess I could explain it to you as if you put glasses on and covered them with wax paper and then covered all of that except for 10 degrees in the lower corner. That's what I can see.
But she can hear.
Leave it.
She can hear what almost seems like a constant warning of her closest friend Libby, a 4.5-year-old German Shepherd.
And over that crevice.
It's okay. Come on.
And she can feel the tug of Libby's harness responding to the command of a very concerned master.
Is that safe?
That's a puddle.
Katahdin is part of Baxter State Park, land left to the people of Maine by a governor who wanted it left wild and free. It's backcountry, hardened by 100 years of hiking.
Thank you.
And the hikers have beaten down the path, and last night's heavy rain has made the trail wet.
Either right or left foot.
For 2 days, more than 9 hours of climbing up, Lynn has been given guidance by Chris. On difficult pitches, her son Joseph has stood right behind to catch her should she fall.
We're going to keep going left a little bit.
Joe's wife Justine and friend Judy Blondin round out our band, each drawing inspiration from Lynn. But there are problems. In places, the trail is like a rushing stream. The water is chilling and slippery. And for Lynn, it's an enormous problem as it affects her hearing. Sometimes in the moving water or in big boulders, she hands off Libby's leash and grabs a bandana to be led by Chris or Joe.
I think the noise blocks out a lot of what you hear. So we used a bandana that I could still feel some of Chris's movements through.
How are your feet?
Wet. And I have good boots, but that's okay. I imagine everybody's wet.
Doesn't matter how waterproof your shoes are
when it goes in over, yeah. That's okay. This is strange. This feels like we're gonna fall through. Libby, find a way. Find a way.
As we work our way up the slides, the clouds seem to follow us across the valley below. Finally, we are on Katahdin's tableland, 1 mile from the summit.
So, we're doing it, guys. All right, what do you see? It's all windy.
The tableland looks easier than it is, and it features one last crown of big boulders just below the summit. It takes more than an hour to slowly, painstakingly navigate across it.
We're gonna go from saying we're doing it to we did it.
Almost hesitatingly, Lynn makes the final push and fulfills a lifelong dream.
We're doing it, Libby. Keep going. I didn't expect this to happen. We're doing it. Can we say we did it?
You did it, Lynn. Sign's on your left.
I can't believe it.
Touch the sign on your left.
I didn't expect to be like this. Libby,
You can reach out to your right.
we are here.
Way to go, Lynn. Directly behind you.
We're here.
There it is.
Uh-huh. We're here.
Congratulations, Lynn.
Thank you. I need a good sob. We went from saying we're doing it to we did it.
As we reach the summit, other hikers seem to appear out of the mist, and soon there are more than a dozen celebrating at the spot known as Baxter Peak.
So what do you see from here?
It's gray.
Nothing.
Gray all the way around.
All the way around.
That's the irony of this. We climb Mount Katahdin and we can't see anything.
Can't see anything. Welcome to my world.
Here at the top, lunch is well earned and always tastes good. It's a place where people tend to reflect on the paths of life that they have walked.
If you're in that same accident and you lose your vision,
Yeah.
they say, have a nice life. And you kind of have to figure out, what are my resources to have a nice life? There are resources out there through the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired with the state, but it's not what you would expect when you lose a significant life function like that. But so many skills you just have to develop on your own, and develop your courage on your own, and realize that you can do anything.
Lynn says she wants to be thought of not as blind, but competent and confident. Her climb of Katahdin helps prove that, and because of her use of touch and hearing, it is fair to say that Lynn Merrill saw more from the top of Katahdin than anyone else. So if you ever hear somebody say, "I can't do it," you tell them about Lynn Merrill. That's our program for this evening. If you'd like to know more about the people, places, and things we visited, check out our websites, WCSH6.com, WLBZ2.com. There'll be more information there. And please, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. There's often more information there as well. Thanks so much for being with us. Get up the chimney next chance you get. And please join us next Saturday night at 7 for another edition of Bill Green's Maine.